He didn't just walk away from his marriage. He left his wife weak, stitches still raw, dizzy from blood loss after a difficult labor on the cold porch of their Austin home with 2 premature babies in her arms. And he said it with no hesitation, no fear, no heart. "You're on your own. Clara and I are leaving." Those were the cruel words Marcus Hale spat before locking the door behind him, leaving Elena and the twins in the pouring Texas rain. Instead of holding her after a delivery that almost went wrong, he handed her to the darkness. Instead of choosing family, he chose betrayal. And he thought she would remain broken, forgotten, and powerless. He believed she had nothing. He believed she had nowhere to go. He believed abandoning her would erase every trace of his mistake. But what he never knew was that the woman he cast aside carried a secret waiting to explode, a truth already written in her name, a power sleeping inside a sealed legal envelope sitting on the kitchen table just a few feet from the door. He slammed on her. He never knew she had already inherited an empire, a $2 billion legacy her aunt built with sweat and brilliance. Power, justice, a future he had thrown away with his own hands. He had no idea who had been searching for her that night in the storm. He had no idea what would happen once the world saw the recording. Dear viewers, thank you for being here. If you watch without subscribing, it's like letting Elena's voice fade back into the rain. When you hit that button, you stand with every abandoned mother, every silent survivor, and every heart that chose to rise again. Please subscribe and tell me where you're watching from in the comments. Elena Hale, 30 years old and 8 months pregnant with twins, froze when the pounding hit her front door in suburban Austin, Texas. It wasn't a gentle knock. It sounded urgent. It sounded like trouble. She steadied herself against the hallway wall. Her back ached. Her feet were swollen. She whispered to her unborn babies, "Stay calm. Mommy's coming." The pounding came again. Instant tension. Elena opened the door and found a man in a dark blue USPS jacket. Mid-40 seconds, tired eyes, holding a thick certified envelope. "Delivery for Mrs. Elena Hale," he said. She signed shakily. He handed her the envelope and hurried back to his truck, leaving her alone with something that felt heavier than paper. She closed the door and looked down. Estate transfer documents, Hale and Whitman Law Group, urgent. Those words punched the air out of her chest. That was the first warning, one she didn't want to face. Elena stared at the envelope, heart thudding under her ribs. Her mind raced backward to the woman who had raised her when no one else cared. Her aunt, Margaret Hale, founder of Hale Industries, a quiet multimillionaire who turned engineering patents and real estate into a massive private company. Flashback 20 years earlier, Dallas, Texas. Aunt Margaret sat on the edge of a twin bed, brushing little Elena's hair in a soft sunlit room. "Someday all of this will make sense," Margaret whispered. "You'll have decisions to make, big ones." At 10 years old, Elena didn't understand. She only remembered the warmth, the safety, the promise that she wasn't alone. Back to the present. Aunt Margaret had passed away exactly 2 weeks ago. The funeral in Dallas, the drive back to Austin, the pregnancy aches, it was all too much. Elena still wore the simple black dress in her mind. Her phone buzzed on the counter. Unknown number from Dallas. She let it go to voicemail. "I can't do one more call about paperwork," she muttered. She placed the certified envelope gently on the kitchen table beside a small pile of unpaid bills and unopened mail. "I can't handle legal stuff today," she whispered. Her voice cracked. That was her second warning the moment she ignored the thing that could have saved her sooner. She didn't know Hale and Whitman already held the originals. This was just her copy, her proof, her door out. Outside, a familiar voice cut through the quiet morning. "Morning, sweetheart." Elena turned to see Mrs. Ramirez, 60, her neighbor of nearly 2 decades. Warm, nosy, protective, the kind of woman who brought casseroles when you had a bad day and scolded you for not eating enough. "Another letter from those attorneys?" "Mrs. Ramirez called from across the white fence. Elena forced a tired smile. "Probably just about the will or funeral. I'll open it later." She didn't know that later would come too late. "Miss S." Ramirez narrowed her eyes. "You look pale, Mija. You sure you're okay?" "I'm fine," Elena lied. Just tired. The twins keep me up. Inside, the air felt heavy, too quiet, too cold. Then the front door swung open. Her husband, Marcus Hale, 33, walked in, 6 feet tall, handsome in a polished way, always dressed like a man trying to climb a corporate ladder. But he walked with a stiffness, now a coldness, like he carried a secret he didn't want her to notice. Marcus didn't say hello, didn't kiss her forehead, didn't ask about the babies. He scanned the living room with narrowed eyes. "You're spending too much," he muttered. "We can't afford twins. No warmth, no kindness, just pressure." That was the third warning. "I only bought diapers and formula," Elena said quietly. "They were on sale. We'll need them soon." Marcus didn't care. He walked right past her, missing the certified envelope on the table, the one that held the truth he desperately needed to know. A truth worth more than $2 billion. He opened the fridge, slammed it shut, and grabbed his car keys. Her phone buzzed again. Unknown caller. Dallas, TX. She silenced it with one trembling thumb. Then it happened. A sharp ding from Marcus's phone. The screen lit up before he could hide it. "Clara. Did you tell her?" Clara. A woman's name. Not his sister. Not a coworker Elena knew. Not anyone who should be texting him that. Elena's heart stopped. Marcus quickly flipped the phone face down, jaw tense. "It's nothing," he snapped. "Don't start." But it wasn't nothing, and he knew it, and she knew it. A new question burned in her mind. Tell her what? Marcus stormed into the bedroom, leaving her alone at the table staring at the unopened envelope, the missed calls from Dallas, and a growing fear she wasn't ready to face. She rubbed her belly gently. "It's okay," she whispered. "Mommy will keep you safe." But she didn't know the betrayal was already in motion. She didn't know her husband had already made a cruel decision. She didn't know the envelope on the table would change her life forever. And she definitely didn't know she had just inherited an empire. The reversal wasn't coming. It was already sitting on her kitchen table, inside that unopened letter. Marcus Hale slammed the front door so hard the walls shook. "I'm late," he barked, grabbing his jacket without looking at Elena. "Don't wait up." Instant intensity. No good morning, no kiss, no check on her or the unborn twins, just coldness. Before she could answer, he was gone, speeding down their quiet Austin street as if escaping a life he didn't want anymore. That was the first crack. Small, but enough to make a loyal wife feel trapped in her own home. Elena stood in the hallway, 8 months pregnant, breathing through the sting in her chest. She pressed a hand against her belly. "It's okay," she whispered. "Mommy's still here." The twins kicked softly, as if they felt something was wrong. She moved slowly through the house, picking up baby gifts and folded onesies, trying to distract her mind. She craved normal, routine, anything that felt safe. When she reached the kitchen counter, she saw something that didn't belong. A receipt. A crisp, fancy receipt from Ridgeview Steakhouse, one of the most expensive restaurants in Austin. A place Marcus always said they couldn't afford. She looked closer. Dinner for 2. Shared dessert. A bottle of wine. Marcus didn't drink wine. Elena couldn't drink at all. Her throat tightened. Another crack. Her phone buzzed again. Missed call. Hale and Whitman Law Group. She stared at the screen, then flipped it over. "Not today," she whispered. "I can't do lawyers and a suspicious husband in the same morning." She wanted to tell herself it was a business dinner, a work thing, a client. But the truth crawled under her skin. Something was wrong. Very wrong. That was his fatal mistake. The storyteller whispers. To calm herself, Elena grabbed her phone and tapped a familiar name. Lila. Her best friend since college, 28, bold, protective, the type who could smell trouble before anyone else. Lila picked up on the first ring. "Okay, your voice sounds off. Talk." "I found a restaurant receipt," Elena said, trying to sound casual and failing. "Ridgeview, 2 guests, wine." Silence. "Have you asked him?" Lila asked. "No, I don't want to accuse him for nothing. Maybe it was work." That's what every woman says before the storm hits. Lila replied softly. The words pierced her chest. Elena forced a laugh, pretending everything was fine, but even Lila could hear the fear. He's changed, Elena whispered. Since the promotion talk fell through, since Aunt Margaret's funeral, since everything. He had no idea what was coming, the storyteller adds. Marcus stepped off the elevator into the sleek, glassy offices of Harlan Financial Group, where he worked as a mid-level project analyst. On the outside, he looked confident. On the inside, he was drowning. His co-worker, Daniel, 35 and blunt, cornered him near the break room. We need to talk, Daniel said. About what? Marcus snapped. About Clara. Marcus stiffened. He glanced around, lowering his voice. Keep your voice down. Daniel shook his head. You're playing with fire, man. Elena's at home, 8 months pregnant, and you're... Don't say it, Marcus growled. But Daniel didn't stop. Clara is bad news, Marcus. This ends ugly. It always does. Another crack. Deeper this time. Marcus sat across from a bank officer, hands shaking. Denied. A week later, his boss leaned across a polished desk. You're plateauing. You want a promotion? Perform like it. That evening, he stood outside the building, shoulders sagging, when Clara, the new intern, stepped up beside him. Her voice soft. Her smile sharp. You deserve better than going home to a stressed wife and baby bills, she whispered. You should be with someone who understands you. In that moment, a weak man made a dangerous choice. Clara fed him a fantasy, the storyteller says, and Marcus believed it. She carried the restaurant receipt upstairs to the laundry room, telling herself maybe she was overthinking. Maybe pregnancy hormones were making her sensitive. She opened Marcus's hamper to wash his clothes, then she froze. His white dress shirt, the one he wore the night of the steakhouse receipt, had a bright red lipstick stain along the collar. Red, shiny. Not hers. Elena's heart split open. This wasn't a crack anymore. This was a fracture. She lifted the collar with trembling fingers. Oh God. Marcus. Tears blurred her vision. Her breathing turned shallow. A tight squeeze arched across her belly. A mild contraction. Not now, she whispered. Please, not now. The twins shifted inside her as if reacting to her pain. She wiped her face and called Lila again. Lila, there's lipstick on his shirt. Long silence. Elena, Lila said quietly. Something's going on. You need to find out fast. And if your contractions get stronger, you call your doctor immediately. Promise me. Elena nodded, even though Lila couldn't see her. She didn't know the lipstick wasn't the last sign. She didn't know the next discovery would shatter whatever was left of her trust. She thought she'd found the worst part of the secret. Steam fogged the bathroom mirror as Marcus stepped out with a towel around his waist. I'm heading out in 10, he shouted, moving quickly, like a man on a schedule he couldn't explain. Instant intensity. Instant pressure. Elena stood near the dresser, folding a tiny baby onesie with shaking hands. Her chest felt tight. Her mind was a mess: lipstick, the expensive dinner, secretive texts. But she still tried to breathe. Still tried to believe he wasn't cruel. Still tried to hold on to hope. That was her mistake. Then it happened. Marcus's phone buzzed on the nightstand. A sharp, distinct buzz. A message. Elena didn't plan to touch it. She didn't want to be that wife. But something deep inside, an instinct that had been whispering for weeks, rose up. Her hand moved before her brain could stop it. She picked up the phone. The preview lit up. Clara. Once she's out of the house, we'll start our real life. I'm ready when you are. Her breath shattered. Her knees almost gave out. Her heart felt like it cracked open. This wasn't suspicion anymore. This was truth. Cold, ugly, undeniable. That was his fatal mistake, the storyteller whispers. For months she had trusted him, defended him, made excuses for him. That trust died in one sentence, one message, one woman's name. Marcus held her hands, eyes glossy with tears. I choose you, only you, forever. He kissed her with fire. He slipped the ring on her finger with shaking hands. She believed every word. She didn't know he was a man who could break promises as easily as he made them. Back in the bedroom, tears dripped onto Marcus's phone screen. A stronger contraction squeezed her abdomen. Real pain. Too early. She placed a hand on her belly. Not now. Please. Not now. The twins kicked hard, reacting to her stress. Marcus stepped out of the closet, now dressed in a crisp shirt and polished shoes. The same look he wore on nights he came home late and smelled of cologne she didn't own. He didn't notice her face. Didn't see the phone in her hand. Didn't notice her shaking shoulders. "I'll be home late," he said, picking up his keys. He moved toward the door. "Marcus," she forced out, voice raw. "Who is Clara?" He froze for half a second, then didn't turn around. "Don't start," he muttered. "She's just from work." She almost showed him the message, almost screamed, almost threw the phone at him. Instead, she whispered, "I saw what she texted you." He snatched the phone from her hand, looked at the screen, and locked it instantly. "She's just dramatic. Don't read my messages." He walked out of the bedroom and headed for the front door. Elena followed him, heart pounding, contractions rolling in uneven waves. "Marcus, please, I'm having pains, and you're talking about a real life with someone else?" He opened the door. The late Texas sun burned orange across the street. "Call your doctor if you're so worried," he said flatly. "I have a meeting." He left. The door closed. The house fell silent. She stood there, breathing hard, trying to steady herself. After a minute, she did what he should have helped her do. She called her OB's office. A nurse answered, calm and professional. "Describe the pain for me, Elena." "They're like cramps. They come and go. My husband just left and I'm really stressed." "Drink water, lie on your left side, and time them," the nurse said. "If they get consistent or closer together, you come in. Stress can cause false labor, but if anything feels wrong, you go to the hospital. Don't wait for him." Elena nodded, tears falling. "Okay. Thank you." She lay down, breathing slowly. Over the next hour, the contractions eased. The baby settled. The false alarm faded. By evening, she felt drained, but more stable. She walked to the front window just as headlights flashed on the street. Marcus's car, and behind it, a small silver car. Her heart sprinted. She watched through a crack in the curtains. Marcus stepped out of his car. Clara stepped out of the silver one. 29, stylish, confident, the kind of woman who believed the world owed her something. Clara walked straight to him. He didn't hesitate. He kissed her. Not a confused kiss. Not a momentary lapse. A deep, hungry kiss. The kind of kiss a man gives when he's already chosen another life. On the street, in broad daylight, in front of the house where his pregnant wife stood watching. She would never be the same woman again, the storyteller murmurs. A new contraction hit sharper, twisting. She clutched her belly, backing away from the window. She didn't scream, didn't run outside, didn't confront them. She didn't have the strength. All she could whisper was the same trembling line. "Not now. Please. Not now." She had seen the truth, but she had no idea he was about to deny everything and make her feel even more alone. The kiss broke her heart. Marcus Hale stormed into the house first. "What were you doing spying at the window yesterday?" He snapped, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the frames on the wall. Instant intensity, no space to breathe, no room for truth. Elena stood in the entryway, one hand on the wall, the other on her belly. She'd barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw that kiss. "I saw you," she whispered. Marcus turned sharply. "Saw me what?" "I saw you with Clara. On the street. You kissed her." Silence. Thick. Dangerous. Marcus stepped closer, towering over her. "You're imagining things," he said. "You're 8 months pregnant, Elena. You're emotional, hormonal. You don't even remember things correctly anymore." Her heart dropped. "Even now," he lied. "I know what I saw," she said, voice trembling. "She got out of her car. You went to her. You." He cut her off, raising his voice. "You're paranoid. I talked to her about work. That's it. You're turning it into something else. Gaslighting. Cruel. Calculated. That was his fatal mistake, the storyteller whispers. Her stomach tightened again, mild, but enough to remind her how fragile she was. Marcus pulled out his phone so fast it almost slipped. "If I call Clara right now, she'll tell you nothing happened," he said. "Do it," Elena whispered. His eyes flickered. Just for a second. Then he put the phone on speaker and dialed. It rang once, twice. Then Clara's voice filled the room, honey sweet. "Hey, baby." Clara stopped, corrected herself. "Hey, Marcus." Elena's stomach twisted. "Clara," Marcus said loudly. "My wife thinks something happened between us yesterday. Tell her she's overreacting." Elena squeezed her eyes shut. Clara didn't miss a beat. "Oh no," Clara said smoothly. "We just talked about that presentation, remember?" "Elena, sweetie, I'm so sorry you're stressed. Pregnancy can make everything feel bigger." Elena felt her knees weaken. Her certainty wobbled. "You see," Marcus said, ending the call quickly. "You're blowing things out of proportion." He stepped closer again, voice low and sharp. "You need to calm down. You're going to make yourself sick. And then what? You want our babies to suffer because you can't control your imagination?" She stared at him, tears sliding down her cheeks. "Marcus, I found the restaurant receipt, the lipstick, the texts. This isn't in my head." "No," he shot back. "You're just looking for drama. You always do this when you feel insecure." He brushed past her toward the kitchen, grabbed his keys again like he was done with the conversation. He wasn't done. He just didn't care. She would never be the same woman again, the storyteller murmurs. Elena tried to catch her breath. The room spun slightly. She leaned against the wall. Then Marcus's phone buzzed again on the counter. A bank alert. The screen lit up bright enough for her to read it clearly. $4,000 transfer completed to Clara Jennings. Her lungs froze. Her heart stuttered. Her world cracked open. Marcus saw where she was looking. He lunged forward, snatching the phone. "That's not what you think," he started. "You sent her money," Elena said softly. "Thousands of dollars, while we're behind on bills." She didn't scream, didn't throw anything, didn't threaten him. She just went quiet, dangerously quiet. The kind of quiet that comes after a heart breaks clean in half. She walked away and shut herself in the nursery. Inside, she placed her shaking hands on the twin cribs, still empty but waiting. She cried into the silence, deep, painful sobs that shook her entire body. Her tears dripped onto the soft baby blankets. "Why would he do this?" she whispered. "Why now?" Her eyes drifted across the room, to the dresser, to the unopened envelope from Hale and Whitman Law Group she had carried upstairs earlier to deal with later. It stared back at her like a silent answer. She still, and refused to open. She didn't know it held power. She didn't know it held justice. She didn't know it held her escape. She only knew her life was slipping away. She thought she was losing everything, but that sealed envelope was about to flip her world. Elena Hale's scream tore through the quiet Austin night. "Marcus, something's wrong. The babies." Instant intensity, instant fear, instant danger. She clutched her belly, stumbling against the hallway wall. A sharp, twisting pain shot through her lower abdomen, stronger and closer together than anything before. Her water broke, splashing onto the hardwood floor. This time, it wasn't false labor. This was real. Marcus stood at the edge of the living room, phone in hand, half-packed overnight bag on the couch. His face went pale for a heartbeat, then annoyed, like she'd picked the worst possible moment. "Now? Seriously?" he muttered. Not concern, not fear, just frustration. That was his fatal mistake. But he grabbed his keys anyway, helped her clumsily into the car, and sped toward Street, David's medical center in downtown Austin, driving like a man racing a clock, not fighting for lives he loved. Elena cried through the contractions, gripping the bed rails. Nurses moved quickly. A doctor checked her progress, voice steady but urgent. "She's preterm, but the twins are tolerating labor," the doctor said. "We're going to monitor closely. Elena, you're doing great. Just breathe for the babies." She should have had Marcus's hand in hers. She should have had someone telling her she wasn't alone. Instead, Marcus paced near the door, checking his phone, stepping out for calls, sighing loudly when nurses asked him to put it away. When the twins finally came, two tiny cries filling the room, Elena sobbed with relief. Two baby boys, small but breathing, fragile but alive. The nurses placed them on her chest one by one. She kissed their damp hair, whispering, "I'm here. Mommy's here." For a few minutes, the world felt quiet and holy. Marcus barely glanced at them. He had no idea what was coming, the storyteller whispers. There was a brief scare. Her bleeding didn't stop as fast as it should have. Nurses worked quickly. The doctor raised his voice, then relaxed when the bleeding slowed. "We're okay now," he told her. "You scared us for a moment, but you're stable. We'll keep you and the babies for observation." 36 hours later, late afternoon, discharge day came faster than she expected. The twins had passed all their newborn checks. They were small but healthy enough to go home with close follow-up. "Are you sure you have support at home?" a nurse asked gently as she wheeled Elena toward the exit. "My husband's there," Elena said, forcing a nod. Marcus walked ahead, pushing the car seat. Impatient. In the car, both boys were strapped into their own small carriers in the back seat. Elena twisted carefully to lay a hand on each tiny chest as Marcus drove them toward their North Austin driveway. The sky was dark, clouds heavy with rain. She was exhausted. Her body ached. Her stitches burned. But her heart still tried to hold onto a tiny scrap of hope. "I can fix this," she whispered to herself. "He's stressed. He's confused. We can fix it." Deep down, dread answered her. Marcus parked but didn't turn off the engine right away. "Elena," he said. She tightened her hold on the babies. "What is it?" He stared straight ahead, hands on the steering wheel. "I don't love you anymore." Her entire world dropped out from under her. "Marcus, we just had the babies," she whispered. "You don't mean that." He finally turned to her. "I'm leaving," he said flatly. "Clara and I already have a place, a plan, a life." Clara. Her name cut deeper than any contraction. "Please," Elena begged, tears spilling. "At least wait until I heal, until the babies are older. We can go to counseling." He opened her door. "Stay here," he said. Then he did the unthinkable. He lifted her gently but not lovingly from the car, set her on the front porch with the infant carriers beside her, and stepped back. Her legs trembled, her stitches pulled. The babies wailed in the humid air. "Marcus, don't do this," she sobbed. "I just gave birth. I can barely stand. Nothing. Please, don't leave us out here. Still nothing." He walked to the front door, opened it, looked back, once expression blank, then said the words that destroyed her completely. "You're on your own." He stepped inside and locked the door. Locked. The mother of his newborn twins. Outside, in the dark. This wasn't a mistake. This was cruelty. This was abandonment. She would never be the same woman again. Across the street, Mrs. Ramirez in her robe, glasses low on her nose, stepped out onto her porch, drawn by the headlights and raised voices. When she saw Elena struggling to stay upright with two crying infants, she grabbed her phone. She hit record. Every word, every action, every cruel second. Evidence, truth, justice. A video that would later burn Marcus's life to the ground. Thunder cracked overhead. Rain finally broke, slamming down in sheets. Elena sank to the cold concrete, soaked, shaking, holding the twins close to her chest. She cried for help. She cried for strength. She thought she was completely alone. A pair of headlights cut through the storm. A black SUV slowed in front of her house, then stopped. She squinted through the rain, heart thudding. She had no idea that the man stepping out of that SUV was there because of the letter she never opened and the law firm that refused to give up on finding her. She thought she'd been abandoned for good, but the stranger walking toward her would change everything. Rain hammered the porch as a tall man in a black suit rushed toward Elena. "Mrs. Hale?" he called out, voice firm, urgent. "Are you Elena Hale?" Instant intensity, instant danger, instant mystery. Elena looked up through the rain, vision blurry from tears and exhaustion. She clutched her newborn twins in their small hospital carriers, her body still weak from labor. I don't know you, she whispered. Her teeth chattered. The man stopped a few feet away, hands raised to show he meant no harm. His dark hair was slicked back, now soaked. A leather briefcase hung from his shoulder, shielded under his coat. My name is Thomas Vaughn, he said. I'm an attorney with Hale & Whitman Law Group in Dallas. I've been trying to reach you for the last 2 weeks. Attorney, her heart stuttered. One door had just slammed in her face. This one was opening. That was Marcus's fatal mistake, the storyteller whispers. Elena tried to straighten, but her muscles trembled. Why are you here? She asked weakly. How did you even find me? Vaughn knelt down beside her, ignoring the puddles soaking his expensive shoes. Your aunt, Margaret Hale, named you as her sole heir, he said gently. We called. We mailed documents. We went to your old Dallas address. When we still couldn't reach you, we checked hospitals for next of kin records. We saw you just delivered here in Austin and were discharged this afternoon. He glanced at the locked door behind her, his jaw tightening. When you didn't answer your phone, I drove straight to this address, he finished quietly. I didn't expect to find you like this. Elena's breath hitched. Aunt Margaret? She left? Something? Vaughn opened his waterproof folder. Inside were printed copies of legal documents, signatures, seals, valuation sheets. Mrs. Hale, he said, meeting her eyes, you are now the owner of Hale Industries, your aunt's entire estate. All of it. The words floated over her like something from another life. Owner. Estate. Hale Industries. That can't be right, she whispered. I didn't even open the letter you sent. It's inside. That letter was your copy, Vaughn said gently. The originals are already filed. This, he tapped the documents, was true even before tonight, before he left you. The twins whimpered in their carriers, scared by the thunder. Elena looked down at them, cradling the handles closer. I can't stay out here, she choked. I just left the hospital. I can barely stand. Vaughn nodded immediately. We're not leaving you here, he said. I want you and the babies checked again, but it's not safe to sit in this storm. I have a car. We own a secure penthouse in Hale Tower downtown. Your aunt kept it for family visits and emergencies. It's yours now. He stood and moved carefully, lifting each carrier with steady hands. Let me help, he said softly. I'll buckle them in myself. For a brief second, Elena hesitated. She'd just been betrayed by the man who was supposed to protect her. Trust was broken. But this stranger had come for her when no one else did. He knew her aunt, he knew her name, he knew about the envelope, and she had nowhere else to go. She nodded once. Vaughn helped her to her feet, one arm around her, guiding her carefully down the steps. The rain soaked them both, but under his umbrella, she felt the first hint of safety. As they walked to the SUV, Elena looked back at the house, at the locked door, at the porch where her heart had shattered. She didn't know it yet, the storyteller murmurs, but she was walking away from that version of herself forever. Vaughn secured the carriers in the back seat and made sure their straps were tight. He opened the passenger door and helped Elena in slowly, mindful of her stitches. You need rest. And a doctor on call. We'll arrange both, he said. He climbed behind the wheel, started the engine, and pulled away from the curb. Behind them, the house grew smaller in the rain. Ahead, the city lights of Austin glowed like a new world. She didn't fully understand the numbers. She didn't understand the power. She only knew one thing. She wasn't powerless anymore. She thought the night had taken everything, but it was carrying her straight into the empire she never knew was hers. The elevator doors opened with a soft chime. Elena, welcome, Attorney Vaughn said, stepping aside. Instant intensity, instant contrast, instant shift in power. Elena stepped slowly into the penthouse of Hale Tower, still in the loose hospital clothes the nurses had sent her home in. Her hospital bracelet still circled her wrist. Floor-to-ceiling windows. Austin's skyline glowing in early light. A quiet that felt expensive and safe. She cradled one twin against her chest, while the other slept in a bassinet the staff had rushed up from storage overnight. Vaughn's assistants had moved fast fresh linens, stocked fridge, crib assembled in hours. Her body still ached, but for the first time since the pregnancy turned heavy and painful, she didn't feel trapped. She would never be the same woman again. Vaughn guided her to a soft gray sofa. "Sit, please. We'll keep this simple," he said. "You need rest as much as answers." A gentle knock at the door. A tall man in his late 40s stepped in, broad shoulders, calm eyes, simple black shirt, the quiet weight of someone used to watching people closely. "Elena," Vaughn said, "this is Detective Eric Soren, private investigator. Your aunt hired him years ago to look into people who tried to use her name, her company, or her family." Soren gave her a respectful nod. "Mrs. Hale, I'm here to protect you and your sons, and to make sure what happened to your aunt's money never happens to you. Instant safety, instant hope." He set a laptop and a folder on the glass coffee table. Not long after, another person joined them, a woman in her late 50s, with gray curls, warm eyes, and a professional grace. "Elena," Vaughn said softly, "this is Joanna Wells, your aunt's estate manager. She helped run Margaret's personal affairs for 15 years. Joanna's eyes filled when she saw Elena. "Your aunt talked about you all the time," Joanna said. "She wanted you to have everything she never did: safety, choice, respect." Elena swallowed hard. Tears slipped down. I thought she just tolerated me," she whispered. "She was always so busy." Joanna shook her head. "She was busy building this for you." She handed Elena a small bundle of letters, each in Margaret's neat handwriting. "If you're reading this, it means the world has shifted around you. Don't let anyone make you feel small. You are allowed to walk away from anyone who mistakes your kindness for weakness." Elena cried quietly, careful not to wake the baby on her chest. "That was her real inheritance," the storyteller murmurs. Vaughn slid several legal documents in front of her and spoke in plain English. "This is what we recommend," he said. He pointed to each document: emergency protective order against Marcus, petition for full custody of the twins, formal divorce petition, request to freeze joint accounts so he couldn't drain them, fraud report tied to suspicious loans and transfers. "No legal jargon," Vaughn said. "Just this: we're cutting his access to you, your babies, and your money." Elena's hand trembled, but not from fear. From the weight of finally having options. Soren opened his laptop and turned it toward her. "We already started collecting evidence," he said. "Your aunt asked me months ago to quietly monitor anyone who might use her name. Once she got sick, she added another request: watch out for you." File by file, he showed her. Screenshots of Marcus and Clara's messages pulled from a backup when Marcus synced his work phone, not realizing IT logs everything. Photos of Marcus and Clara at Ridgeview Steakhouse, date and time stamp, matching the receipt she found. Bank records showing repeated transfers from Marcus to Clara. Then Soren placed one more document on the table, a photocopy of a loan agreement, her name at the top, her signature at the bottom. "I never signed anything like this," Elena breathed. "I know," Soren said. "A handwriting expert compared this to your real signature from your marriage license and hospital forms. This one shows clear signs of forgery." "Marcus," she whispered. "He used my name." $15,000, Soren said. "In your name, without your consent. That's not just betrayal, it's a crime." Silence fell over the room. Outside, the city kept moving: cars, meetings, normal life. Inside, everything had changed. Vaughn gathered the documents she'd already initialed. "We'll file these today," he said. "An emergency hearing in family court should be scheduled within a couple of weeks. With this evidence, Marcus doesn't have a strong case." Elena wiped her cheeks and picked up the pen. Her hand no longer shook. One signature, then another, then another. She was no longer the woman Marcus could break. When she finished, Vaughn stood. "Get some sleep," he said gently. "Take care of the twins. Let us do the heavy lifting for a while." Soren cleared his throat. "Mrs. Hale, with your permission, we'll also secure the original video from Mrs. Ramirez," he said. "We'll give it to the court, and if you agree, To a reporter we trust. Your story could protect other women. Elena hesitated, then nodded. If it helps someone else, do it. As he left with Soren and Joanna, Elena sat back, listening to her baby's soft breaths. She didn't know it yet, but tomorrow, the first spark of her story would slip onto the internet. Soren cleared his throat. Mrs. Hale, with your permission, we'll also secure the original video from Mrs. Ramirez, he said. We'll give it to the court and, if you agree, to a reporter we trust. Your story could protect other women. Elena hesitated, then nodded. If it helps someone else, do it. And within days, the whole city would know what Marcus did. Justice wasn't just coming, it was already on its way to a courtroom with his name on the docket. The courtroom doors opened with a soft creak. Elena stepped inside slowly, wearing a simple blouse and loose black pants that didn't press on her healing body. Her twins were 2 weeks old now, sleeping in a stroller with Lila just outside the courtroom doors. Attorney Vaughn walked beside her, a calm, steady presence. On the other side of the room, Marcus Hale sat at a table with a cheap local lawyer. He wore his best suit, jaw clenched, eyes tired from nights that didn't go his way. Instant intensity, instant confrontation. He still believed he could spin this, still believed he could paint himself as the victim. That was his fatal mistake, the storyteller whispers. The bailiff called, "All rise." Judge Linwood, mid-50 seconds, firm and fair, took her seat. "You may be seated," she said. "We are here on emergency motions in the matter of Elena Hale and Marcus Hale regarding temporary custody and protective orders." Marcus's attorney stood first. "Your Honor, my client claims his wife left the marital home without warning," he began. "He simply wants access to his children and fair financial support until their situation is resolved." Judge Linwood looked unimpressed. "Mr. Hale is requesting temporary spousal support?" "Yes, Your Honor," the lawyer said. "Mrs. Hale has recently come into an inheritance which she did not disclose to him." Marcus smirked slightly. There it was his angle. She had money, he did not. Judge Linwood turned to Vaughn. "Response?" Vaughn rose calmly. "Your Honor, we oppose his request on every level," he said. "We will show abandonment, infidelity, financial abuse, and fraud by Mr. Hale. We will also show clear evidence that Mrs. Hale was the one left at the marital home, not the other way around." Marcus scoffed loudly. "That's not what happened. Mr. Hale," Judge Linwood warned, "you will speak through your attorney." Vaughn nodded to the clerk. "If we may, Your Honor, we'd like to begin with Exhibit A." The lights dimmed slightly as a screen flickered to life on the side wall. The video started. Mrs. Ramirez's recording. Marcus's voice echoed through the courtroom. "I don't love you anymore. Clara and I are leaving. Stay here." The camera shook as Mrs. Ramirez zoomed in, Elena on the porch. 2 newborn carriers at her feet, rain starting to fall. Marcus turning his back, stepping inside. The door closing. The lock sliding into place. The twins' thin cries filled the speakers. A woman in the gallery covered her mouth. Someone whispered, "Oh my God." Marcus went pale. That's taken out of context," he stammered. Judge Linwood's eyes sharpened. "How exactly is locking your bleeding, postpartum wife outside in the rain with newborn twins out of context, Mr. Hale?" He had no answer. "Exhibit B," Vaughn said calmly. "Screenshots of text messages between Mr. Hale and a woman named Clara Jennings. The screen showed Clara's words. Once she's out of the house, we'll start our real life." Another message. "Did you tell her yet?" Elena stared at the table, not wanting to watch more but needing the judge to see it all. "Exhibit C," Vaughn continued. Bank records showing multiple transfers from Mr. Hale to Clara Jennings, including one for $4,000 the day before the hospital discharge. The amounts appeared on the screen like bullet holes. "Exhibit D," Vaughn said. "A $15,000 personal loan taken out in Mrs. Hale's name with a forged signature. Our handwriting experts' report is attached." Detective Soren approached with a folder and handed it to the clerk, who passed it up to Judge Linwood. Gasps rippled through the room. Marcus's attorney tried to rally. Your Honor, this is a lot of emotionally charged material. My client insists this is exaggerated. He was under stress, and stress doesn't excuse fraud or abandonment, Judge Linwood said sharply. And it certainly doesn't excuse leaving a woman who just gave birth outside in a storm. She turned to Elena. Mrs. Hale, the judge said, voice softening. Do you wish to speak? Elena stood slowly. Her legs were steady. I don't want revenge, she said quietly. I want safety for my sons. He didn't come back to check on us. He didn't call the hospital. He didn't even make sure we went inside. I can't trust him with their lives. Her voice didn't shake. That was her power. Judge Linwood nodded once. Here's my ruling, she said. Temporary, full custody to Mrs. Hale. Emergency protective order granted. All joint accounts frozen, pending final property division. Mr. Hale's request for spousal support is denied. Marcus shot to his feet. You can't do this. Security moved closer. Sit down, Mr. Hale, Judge Linwood ordered. He glared at Elena. Elena, you can't take my kids, he shouted. She didn't look at him. She gathered her papers, nodded to Vaughn, and walked calmly toward the exit. She passed him without a flinch, without a pause. Justice wasn't loud. It was steady. He thought the courtroom was the worst of it, but the real public judgment was still waiting outside his office doors. Marcus Hale burst into the lobby of Harlan Financial Group like a man ready to argue with the universe. Instant intensity, instant desperation, instant collapse incoming. Whispers followed him as he crossed the polished floor. People glanced at their phones, then at him, then away again. That was his fatal mistake, the storyteller murmurs. He thought he could outwalk a storm already everywhere. He headed straight for the elevators. Marcus, wait, a familiar voice said. It was Daniel, his blunt coworker, standing near the security desk. You don't want to go up there, Daniel said quietly. Marcus snapped. I'm not in the mood for lectures. I just need to talk to Harlan, clear this up. Daniel didn't move. Instead, he pulled out his phone and held it up. A video was playing. Mrs. Ramirez's recording. The porch. The crying babies. The lock. Millions of views. Comments flooding the screen. Monster. Arrest him. How could anyone do this? Protect that mother at all costs. Marcus's voice echoed again from the tiny speaker. You're on your own. Marcus felt his insides turn to ice. Where did you get that? He choked. It's everywhere, Daniel said quietly. Local news, national segments, social media. People are calling you porch dad in the worst way imaginable. Marcus shook his head. This is her revenge. Elena's lawyer leaked this. Daniel didn't blink. Maybe. Or maybe the universe just stopped covering for you. The elevator dinged. 2 security guards stepped out. Marcus Hale? One asked. Marcus swallowed. Yeah? Mr. Harlan wants to see you. Bring your badge. They walked him upstairs, not to his office, but directly into the executive conference room. Mr. Harlan stood at the far end of the table, hands resting on a printed stack of papers. Sit, he said. Marcus sat. We've seen the video, Harlan said. We've reviewed the fraud notice from your wife's attorney. We've confirmed the forged loan in her name. Marcus opened his mouth. Please, you have to understand my marriage was falling apart. Save it. Harlan cut him off. This company will not be associated with a man who abandons his newborns and forges signatures. You are terminated, effective immediately. Terminated. The word rang in his ears. No, Marcus whispered. I need this job. I need income to fix this. HR will send your final paperwork, Harlan said. Security will escort you out. It was over. No job, no respect, no more safety net. She would never be the same woman again, the storyteller whispers, but this time, it's Marcus who will never recover. Outside the building, the real storm waited. Cameras, reporters, boom mics. Marcus, a reporter shouted. Marcus, is it true you left your wife and newborns outside in the rain? Another voice. Marcus, do you have any comment about the forged loan? He tried to push past them, covering his face. Then a sharper voice sliced through the noise. Mei Wu, a local reporter known for hard-hitting stories, stepped forward. Marcus, are you aware your ex is now confirmed as the sole owner of Hale Industries? She asked. Do you regret leaving the woman who just became a billionaire heiress? The air left his lungs. Owner of Hale Industries. Billionaire. He stumbled. Elena? He whispered. No, that's not. The reporters surged closer, shouting more questions. Then he heard a voice he recognized, for all the wrong reasons. Marcus. He turned. Clara stood near a sleek black car, sunglasses on, lips pressed in an annoyed line. She looked more irritated than heartbroken. Clara! Please, get me out of here, he shouted, stumbling toward her. They fired me. The judge. She took a small step back. I saw the news, she said, voice carrying just enough for the microphones to catch. You're broke, Marcus. No job, no money, no access to her inheritance. She gave a cold laugh. I'm not going down with you. She turned, slid into the car, and shut the door. He grabbed the handle. The driver locked it. The car pulled away from the curb, leaving him alone under a forest of cameras, humiliated, exposed, abandoned. Karma didn't walk. It ran. Hours later, he dragged himself back to the house in North Austin. The same porch, the same door, the same concrete where he'd left his wife and sons. He opened the door. Empty. No crib, no clothes, no pictures, just dust outlines where furniture once stood. Elena? He called weakly. Please. I'm sorry. No answer. She was gone. The babies were gone. His job was gone. His mistress was gone. And the life he thought he controlled? Gone. He had no idea what was coming, the storyteller whispers. Because far above him, in a tower with her name now on the door, Elena was just getting started. His fall was complete, and she was finally free to decide what came next. 6 months later, early morning in Hale Tower, the sunrise hit the glass of Hale Tower like fire. Instant intensity, instant rebirth, instant peace. Elena Hale stood on the penthouse balcony, wrapped in a soft cardigan, her twins, now chubby 6-month-olds, resting in her arms. The city below looked calmer in the morning light, like the world had finally stopped spinning out of control. She took a slow breath, a real one. The kind she hadn't been able to take when she was trapped in that old house. She would never be the same woman again, the storyteller whispers. Behind her, the sliding doors opened. Joanna stepped out with a folder. Elena, the documents you asked for are ready, she said, smiling. Elena shifted one twin to her hip and opened the folder on the balcony table. Inside were simple outlines, no complicated jargon, just bullet points and names. A housing program for single mothers leaving abusive or unstable homes. Scholarships and job training grants for parents starting over. Funding for domestic crisis shelters in Austin, Dallas, and beyond. A legal aid partnership with Hale and Whitman to provide free advice to abandoned spouses. These programs will take time, Joanna said, but our board has already approved the budgets. The first shelter could open by the end of the year. This is right, Elena said softly. If Aunt Margaret trusted me with this much, it can't just be for me. Joanna's eyes warmed. Your aunt would be proud. She built the empire. You're giving it a heart. That was her real inheritance. The storyteller murmurs. Not just money, but a mission. Elena signed the initiative documents with steady hands. Her future was not about Marcus, not about revenge, about rebuilding for herself and for women like her. Bright walls, gentle mobile. 2 cribs side by side. Lila stood by the changing table, hair in a messy bun, holding a bottle. Your sons are officially obsessed with 3A. M. Feedings, she joked. I hope your empire has a coffee budget. Elena smiled, placing one baby gently in his crib. I own the company, she said. I'll put coffee as a line item. Lila hugged her. You did it, Lila whispered. He tried to break you, but you built something instead. Elena shook her head. No, she said. I survived. Then I decided what to do with the survival. A simple sentence, carrying months of pain and a lifetime of strength. Little Elena lay in a small bed, eyes wide after a nightmare. Aunt Margaret sat beside her, brushing her hair. "Life will not always be kind," Margaret said quietly. "But you, my girl, you will rise. And when you do, you'll understand why the storms came." She tucked the blanket under Elena's chin. "Strength isn't loud," she whispered. "It's chosen." The memory faded. Back in the present, Elena stood between the cribs, tucking the twins under soft blankets, the same gentle way Aunt Margaret once tucked her in. "You're safe now," she whispered. "And I will make sure you stay safe, no matter what." Tiny hands curled around her finger. She felt love swell up deep, fierce, unbreakable. The storm was behind her. Justice had been served in court and online. Marcus was under fraud investigation and living with the consequences of his own choices. Her life, finally, was her own. Elena walked back to the balcony. The city glowed gold. Traffic hummed faintly below. The skyline stretched like an open road. Sunrise washed over her face. A symbol of rebirth. A promise of tomorrow. Proof that even after the darkest night, morning still comes. She whispered to herself, "This is my life now, and no one will ever take it from me again." The camera slowly pulled back. The woman, the twins, the sunrise, the tower with her name attached to its empire. A survivor, a mother, a woman who turned pain into purpose. I hope you enjoyed watching this story as much as I enjoyed bringing it to life. Like, share, and comment on the lessons you learn from Elena's journey. Tell me where you're watching from in the comments below. See you in my next video. He didn't just walk away. He waited until the coffin of her mother was being lowered into the ground, weeks after her father's quiet burial, then stepped out from the line of mourners and pressed a manila folder into his wife's shaking hands while their 7-year-old son watched. That afternoon, at the edge of a fresh grave, Elena Vargas, who most people there only knew as Elena Cole, the quiet, ordinary wife, stood with mud under her shoes and tears in her eyes, one arm around her full-term belly, the other wrapped around Leo's shoulders. As her husband said, "Sign them when you can. I'm done." Then he turned his back on them. He walked across the cemetery with a suitcase rolling behind him, right past the parked cars, toward a waiting figure watching from behind tinted glass. He thought she had no power. He thought she had no name of her own. He thought leaving her at a burial would erase her from his life for good. What he never knew was this. The woman he had just abandoned was not just a wife. She was an only child. Her mother wasn't just Marisol. Her father wasn't just Victor. And that sealed envelope waiting in a lawyer's desk, addressed to Elena alone, held decisions that reached far beyond one broken marriage. While Adrian drove away to start the life he thought he deserved, Elena was already being asked to sit down, breathe, and listen to words recorded long before the betrayal he had planned so carefully. Words that would quietly flip the board he thought he was winning on. From that moment, this stopped being a story about a helpless, discarded wife. It became something else. A slow, precise war of documents, signatures, courtrooms, and consequences Adrian never imagined when he chose to walk away at a grave. Dear viewers, thank you for being here. If you watch without subscribing, it's like letting Elena's voice be buried with her mother. When you hit that button, you stand with every woman left in her worst moment and every child who watched a door close. Please subscribe now, and in the comments, tell me where you are watching from. The room exploded with quiet chaos the moment Elena Vargas opened the cedar box. Papers slid and fanned across the carpet like a small storm had burst open in her modest living room. Her hands shook, not from fear, but from the weight of what she was finally allowing herself to see. 40-year-old Elena, soft-spoken and gentle, knelt on the rug surrounded by documents she had spent years pretending did not define her, not to neighbors, not to friends, not even to her husband. The box itself was heavy, carved with the initials VH for Vargas Holdings, a name that appeared in business newspapers, industry reports, and the fine print of major corporate loans, but never in Elena's daily conversations. For most of her marriage, that box had sat at the back of her bedroom closet, exactly where her father told her to keep it until the right time. The right time had come sooner than anyone expected. A quiet gasp escaped her lips. Inside were gold-stamped company seals, share certificates, ownership agreements, and embossed folders marked with the Vargas emblem. They glimmered under the evening light, reflecting a world Elena had run from. A world too large, too powerful, too dangerous. For a woman who thought she only wanted simple love and a simple life. She had never counted it all, but she knew enough. Those seals, those papers, those signatures together represented a family empire quietly valued at around $9 billion. Wealth she had never used. Wealth she had never discussed with Adrian. Next to the papers lay a sealed legal envelope, thick and heavy. The label hit her like a fist to the chest. For Elena, to be opened by Mr. Hayes upon our passing. Her eyes stung and her breath hitched. Mr. Hayes, her parents' lawyer, loyal to the Vargas family for decades, had called her 2 days earlier. Elena, he'd said gently, bring the cedar box and that sealed envelope to my office after your mother's burial. Your parents left instructions. Now that envelope felt radioactive in her hands. Elena pressed it to her heart and closed her eyes. She was not just Elena, the quiet woman who worked part-time at a local charity and shopped during sales. She was Elena Vargas, only child of Victor and Marisol Vargas, founders of a multi-billion-dollar industrial empire. Her parents built factories, energy plants, and manufacturing hubs across the country through layers of private holding companies, so the family name never became celebrity gossip. Workers had homes because of Vargas wages. Towns had power because of Vargas contracts. But her parents hid their influence behind modest living and humility, and Elena had followed their example. Age 8, her father Victor lifts her onto his shoulders during a factory tour. Workers grin and call her La Pequeña Jefa, the little boss. She waves back, giggling. Victor leans up and murmurs, remember, mi querida. Greatness isn't measured by what others see. It's measured by how you treat people when no one is watching. Age 17. Her mother, Marisol, brushes her hair in their small but comfortable home. Hide your wealth until you find a man whose love doesn't depend on it, Marisol says softly. But why? Young Elena frowns. Because the wrong man, her mother replies, will see your heart as a ladder, not a gift. The memories dissolved, replaced by the harsh truth of the present. 2 months ago, her parents' private jet suffered an engine failure mid-air. Investigators called it a mechanical malfunction. To Elena, it felt like the sky itself had torn open and swallowed her world. She had spent those weeks handling everything, legal documents, condolences, and 2 separate ceremonies. Her father's remains had been laid to rest quietly in a private family mausoleum overseas. Today's burial, the one she was still planning even as she knelt on this floor, would be her mother's final goodbye on local soil. 9 months pregnant, barely sleeping, still pretending to everyone, including her husband, that she was ordinary. A small hand tapped her shoulder. Mommy, look! 7-year-old Leo, bright-eyed and full of life, held up a drawing. In the picture, Elena's parents smiled beside a tall building labeled Vargas Main Plant. Elena froze. Leo didn't understand what he'd drawn. He'd only copied a photo he'd once seen tucked into her old album. But if Adrian saw it and started asking questions, she gently folded the drawing and slid it under the edge of the cedar box. Let's keep this just between us, okay? She whispered. Leo nodded happily, unaware that a simple drawing could pull threads that revealed everything. She ran a hand through his hair, love and guilt tangled together. Her husband, Adrian Cole, age 42, was ambitious, charming in public, and constantly restless. When they met, he admired her calmness, her kindness, and what he thought was her simple upbringing. He knew her parents owned some factories back home once, but Elena let him believe they'd sold everything and retired modestly. Over the years, his admiration had soured into frustration. He wanted status. He wanted more. He wanted a life that looked richer than their modest house and old car. He had no idea that Elena could quietly buy and sell every symbol of success he chased, 10 times over. She had chosen humility. She had chosen peace. She had chosen love. And now, with her parents gone and the cedar box finally open, none of it was hypothetical anymore. The empire was hers. Footsteps sounded behind her. Aunt Maria, her mother's older sister, entered the room with sorrow carved into every line of her face. Elena, mi hija, are you all right? Maria asked softly. Elena nodded. Just finishing some things before tomorrow. Behind Maria, Sophia, Elena's 33-year-old cousin, stepped in carrying flower samples. Her eyes landed on the open box, then on Elena's pale face. Elena, you should rest, Sophia murmured. I will, Elena lied. But her world was already shifting. Her phone buzzed. She hoped, prayed it was Adrian checking on her, asking if she needed anything, remembering that tomorrow she would bury her mother. Instead, the message hit her like ice water. Adrian, don't wait up, late meeting, again. Her heart sank, her faint smile died. For the first time beneath her grief, she felt something else. A quiet warning, a crack she could no longer ignore. Somewhere deep in Weisbad, Elena sensed it. The cracks in her marriage were widening, and something dark was coming. The front door slammed so hard the picture frames rattled. Elena flinched, her hand instinctively going to her belly. The sound tore through the quiet house like an accusation. Loud, sharp, impatient. On the floor, Leo looked up from his coloring book, crayons suspended midair. Adrian Cole had arrived home. 42, tall, charismatic, and once the man who made her believe in forever, Adrian now stood in the doorway like a stranger. His suit jacket hung over one shoulder, his tie loosened, his shirt slightly wrinkled, like he'd been somewhere that wasn't his office, long enough to forget a mirror. He didn't greet his son, he didn't look at Elena, he didn't ask about the funeral details or her doctor's appointment or her swollen ankles. He walked straight past them. The slam's intensity faded into a heavy, hurting silence. You're home late, Elena said gently, forcing her voice to be calm instead of pleading. I told you I had work, he snapped, tugging at his cufflinks. Leo watched from the corner, wide-eyed. He adored his father, but lately he treated Adrian like a wild animal, always trying to guess what version was coming through the door. Elena pushed herself up from the couch, the weight of her pregnancy aching in her back. She approached him slowly. You didn't answer my calls, she said. I thought something happened on the road. Adrian rolled his eyes. I was busy, Elena. Not everything is a crisis. Her phone lay on the table beside his. As she reached for it, his screen lit up. A preview flashed for half a second. Just long enough. See, can't stop thinking about last night. Elena's lungs forgot how to work. Adrian grabbed the phone so fast it almost skidded off the table. He turned it face down, fingers tight around it. Her stomach nodded. Not from the baby this time. From the cold, sharp edge of fear. Who's C? She asked softly. Adrian's voice sharpened. Are you checking my phone now? You left it unlocked on the table, she replied. The message just popped up. That doesn't mean you get to read it, he muttered. I didn't read it, she whispered. I just saw... It's work, Elena. She swallowed. Work doesn't usually send heart emojis. He stopped halfway to the hallway but didn't turn around. Don't start, he warned. I'm tired. He disappeared into the bathroom and shut the door harder than he needed to. Seconds later, the shower came on. He never showered this late, not unless he had been somewhere he didn't want to talk about. Elena stood in the middle of the living room, her body still, her mind racing. Mommy, are you sad? Leo whispered. She forced a smile that felt like it would crack. No, baby, just tired, she said. Another lie to cover another wound. She picked up Adrian's suit jacket from the arm of the chair. It smelled like his cologne. And something else, a soft, floral perfume that wasn't hers. The same kind she'd once smelled faintly on his shirt 2 weeks ago and told herself was from a coworker's hug at the office. He had sprayed fresh cologne in the bathroom. She heard the familiar click. Adrian never wore cologne right before bed, only before going out, or coming back from somewhere he shouldn't have been. When he stepped from the bathroom, hair damp, phone in hand, he didn't glance at her or Leo. He went straight to the bedroom, grabbed his keys, and shoved his wallet into his pocket. Where are you going? Elena asked, steady but soft. Back to the office, Juan said. Client issue. At this hour? It's urgent. Her mother's old warning from years ago rose up like a ghost. People hide their true intentions in small habits, Elena. Watch how they change their routines. Elena clasped her hands under her belly, fighting the urge to cry. Adrian, can we at least talk after the burial? Please, I feel you slipping away. He looked at her then, for the briefest moment. His face was unreadable. Not now, he said. He walked to the door. I'll be late. Don't wait up. The door clicked, shut. Leo slipped his small hand into hers. Daddy didn't kiss her, he whispered. No, she replied quietly. He didn't. Her phone buzzed. New message. Sophia, is Adrian treating you right? I saw how he acted last week. Something feels off. Elena stared at the words, her thumb hovering over the screen. She wanted to defend him, like she always did. But deep inside, she knew Sophia was right. And soon Elena would hear something she could never unhear. The proof that the man she loved had already replaced her. The sound of another woman's laughter cut through the quiet like a knife. Elena froze in the dark hallway, her bare feet pressing into the cool wooden floor. The bathroom door at the end stood half open, steam drifting out in lazy clouds. Behind the frosted glass, Adrian's shadow moved, phone held close to his mouth. No, he said in a low, sharp whisper. Listen, I told you, I'll handle it. She won't be a problem much longer. Elena's pulse thundered in her ears. He wasn't talking about work. He wasn't talking about stress. He was talking about her. She took a slow step closer, careful not to let the floor creak. Adrian dropped his voice, but the house was quiet enough that she heard every poisonous word. She still thinks we're just going through a rough patch, he said. Once the funeral is done, I'll be out. You know I don't want this marriage anymore. Silence. Then that same soft laugh again, warm, playful, familiar in a way that burned. A laugh she hadn't heard from him in months. Just promise me, Adrian, the woman's voice purred through the speaker. No more delays. No more delays, like Elena's existence was just something clogging his schedule. He sighed, and this time the sound was happy. I promise, Chloe. Soon. Chloe. See, the message from earlier suddenly fit like the missing piece of a cruel puzzle. The words echoed through Elena's chest, battering against the walls of her disbelief, years earlier. Adrian holds both her hands, smiling softly. I want forever with you, Elena. I don't care what you have or don't have. I just want you. 6 months ago, Elena winces, trying to stand up from the couch, clutching her early pregnancy nausea. Can you stay home tonight? I feel awful, she asks. He doesn't look up from his laptop. You're too needy lately, Elena. I can't drop everything for every little thing. 2 weeks ago, he lies as far from her as he can in bed, claiming he's too hot to cuddle. She had believed him then. Now she knew better. A tiny sob slipped out before she could stop it. She slapped a hand over her mouth, terrified he'd hear. She wasn't ready to confront him. Not yet. Not without thinking, not without a plan, not while she was this close to her due date and clinging to the little strength she had left. In the bathroom, Adrian's voice softened. Good night, sweetheart, he murmured. Sweetheart. He'd stopped calling Elena that months ago. The walls seemed to tilt around her. Tears gathered and finally spilled, sliding down her cheeks and dripping onto the hardwood floor. Her mind tried to bargain. Maybe she misunderstood. Maybe he meant something else. Maybe... No. The perfume on his jacket, the heart emoji, the midnight office trips, the way he'd already emotionally left their home. All of it pointed in one direction. The call ended with a soft beep. Light shifted under the bathroom door as he moved. Elena pressed herself into the shadow beside the guest bedroom, holding her breath as though her life depended on it. The door swung open. Adrian stepped into the hallway, towel around his waist, phone still in his hand. He glanced at the screen, smiled to himself, then locked it with a new passcode. He walked past her hiding place without so much as a pause. He didn't sense her. He didn't look for her. In that moment, she realized he didn't emotionally live in this house anymore. He disappeared into their bedroom, humming under his breath. Elena stayed where she was, clinging to the wall. Her body shook. Her chest hurt. Her throat felt tight, like it was closing up around a scream she refused to release. Mommy! Leo's sleepy voice floated from the living room. Elena wiped her cheeks with the back of her hand, forcing the tremble out of her breathing. She walked toward her son. She could not break. Not in front of Leo, not tonight. She lay beside him until his breathing evened out again, one hand resting on her belly. She knew the truth now. Nothing about her marriage was what it seemed, and soon she would stand beside her mother's grave, needing him more than ever, only to watch him deliver the final blow. The shovel struck the earth with a dull thud, and the sound carved through Elena's chest. Intensity crashed over her like a wave. Family members circled the open grave, dressed in black, murmuring prayers, crossing themselves, wiping tears. The priest's voice floated in the cool air, but the words blurred around her. Elena, 9 months pregnant, eyes swollen from sleepless nights, heart already shattered, stood unsteadily near the front, gripping Leo's hands so tightly he winced. She loosened her hold, whispering, "Sorry, baby," and stroked his knuckles with her thumb. They were lowering her mother's coffin now. Her father's remains had been laid to rest weeks earlier in a small private ceremony overseas. Today was the public burial her mother deserved. Friends, workers from the old Vargas factories, neighbors who only knew Marisol as the kind nurse who always brought food when someone was sick. To most here, Elena was simply Marisol's daughter, not the Vargas heir, not a billionaire, just the grieving child saying goodbye. She could barely stand. "Elena, mi hija, lean on me," Aunt Maria whispered, slipping an arm around her. Elena nodded, swallowing back nausea and grief. The baby shifted against her ribs as if sensing the storm. As the coffin descended, movement near the cemetery gates caught her eye. A dark sedan idled there, just beyond the official parking area. Through the windshield, she glimpsed a woman with dark hair and oversized sunglasses. The woman's gaze was locked on the burial, then flicked toward a familiar figure standing near the back of the crowd. Adrian. Elena's stomach twisted. She didn't know the woman's name yet. She just recognized the shape of her silhouette. And in a flash, she remembered the floral perfume on Adrian's suit. The perfume that wasn't hers. Of course he wouldn't come alone. Adrian stepped forward now, dressed in a suit that looked more like a business presentation than a burial. His face was smooth, lacking any of the redness or puffiness grief usually brought. He carried a manila folder. "Elena," he called quietly. She turned, expecting, hoping for at least a shared moment of pain. They had lost the same woman who had called him son for 13 years, but his eyes were flat, cold, purposeful. "Not here, Adrian," Aunt Maria warned, sensing something in his posture. He ignored her. "We need to talk," he said. "Now?" Elena whispered. "I'm burying my mother." He held out the folder. "Petition for dissolution of marriage." The words didn't sink in at first. They just floated in the air like smoke. Then they hit her all at once. The grave, the coffin, the priest's prayer, her son's small fingers in her hand, and divorce papers. A ripple of shocked whispers moved through the mourners. Mr. Hayes, standing a few rows back to represent the legal side of the Vargas family, stiffened. He knew Adrian, knew the loans tied to his career, knew exactly what it meant for him to choose this moment. "Adrian," Elena's voice broke. "Why today?" "Because dragging it out is worse," he said, as if this was a routine conversation. "We both know this marriage hasn't worked in years. I'm just being honest." "We were supposed to talk after the funeral," she whispered. He'd texted her that earlier in the week. She thought he meant comfort, plans for the baby, financial decisions. He'd meant this. "I'm pregnant with your daughter," she said, her free hand covering her belly. "Can't this wait one day?" "You'll manage," he replied. "Your family will take care of you." He had no idea how true that statement really was. Leo tugged at her dress. "Daddy is leaving us?" he asked, voice shaking. Adrian finally looked at his son, but his expression barely softened. "Go stand with your Aunt Leo." Behind him, the dark car door at the edge of the cemetery opened halfway. The brunette in sunglasses leaned forward, then hesitated when she saw the attention the scene was drawing. She pulled the door nearly shut again, watching through the narrow gap. So that was Chloe's version of support, close enough to claim the moment, far enough to pretend she hadn't seen the damage. A memory stabbed through Elena. 1 month ago. Adrian slams a kitchen drawer. "Your family's drama is exhausting," he says. "Hospitals, lawyers, funerals. I can't keep putting my life on hold for this." Back then, she thought it was stress talking. Now she recognized it as a man who had already picked his exit. I won't sign these today, Elena whispered, her hands trembling as she clutched the folder. Not at my mother's grave. You don't need to sign them now, he said. Just make it quick. My lawyer already filed. This is a formality. Her knees buckled. Elena, Aunt Maria cried, catching her as she swayed. Mr. Hayes stepped closer. She needs to sit, he said sharply. But Elena couldn't. Not yet. She needed to see this, to remember. Adrian adjusted his watch, already glancing toward the parking lot. I'll send someone for my things, he said. It's better this way. Better? For who? She asked, her voice barely audible. He didn't answer. As he turned and walked away, the brunette woman slid fully back into her seat, shrinking down slightly as Adrian approached. He didn't introduce her, didn't look back, just opened her passenger door, murmured something, then went to the trunk of his own car. Lena watched the suitcase he'd packed days earlier. She remembered the missing shirts, the half-empty drawer being lifted into the trunk. Her world had already broken. She just hadn't seen the pieces yet, and as Adrian walked toward his car, suitcase in hand, Elena felt a sick certainty. This was not just a fight. This was the moment he would truly abandon them. The car engine roared to life, too loud for a cemetery. Elena's heart lurched as the sound ripped through the air. It sounded like something tearing, like a door slamming shut on the life she thought she had. Adrian rolled his suitcase across the gravel toward his car, shoulders tense, eyes fixed ahead. The brunette woman, Chloe, though Elena still didn't know the name, waited in the sedan near the exit, sunglasses still on, face turned toward her phone. He was leaving, walking away from his wife, walking away from his son, walking away from his unborn daughter. Adrian, Elena's voice cracked as she tried to move toward him, one hand on her belly. Please, not like this. We just buried my mother. He didn't slow down. Aunt Maria tightened her arm around Elena. Careful, Hija. You're shaking, she murmured. Leo's small voice trembled. I'll talk to him, he whispered. Daddy listens to me. Leo, wait. Elena reached out, but he wriggled away and ran. Her heart jumped into her throat. Daddy, Leo shouted, his little shoes crunching over the gravel. Daddy, don't leave. Mommy's crying. Please, don't go. Adrian finally stopped. For a second, everything froze. He turned just enough to look at his son, but he did not kneel. He did not open his arms. His expression was impatient. Leo, he sighed, go back to your mother. Leo's face crumpled. But you said we'd be together when the baby comes. Adrian's jaw tensed. Plans change. Go stand with Aunt Sophia. He turned away before Leo could answer. At the edge of the lot, Chloe shifted in her seat, leaning away from the windshield like she didn't want to be recognized. She watched, though, every gesture, every tear. Elena tried to walk toward them, but her knees threatened to give way. The stress, the heat, the grief, the shock, her body felt like it was shutting down. She stumbled, dropping to one knee in the grass beside her mother's grave. The pain in her chest collided with a sharp, sudden pressure deep in her abdomen. Adrian, please, she gasped. I'm not okay. He opened the driver's door. You'll manage, he said. Your family's here. You're not alone. He had used those words so many times. You'll manage. To excuse every absence, every selfish choice. Sophia sprinted after Leo and scooped him into her arms before he could reach the moving car. Leo kicked and sobbed against her. No, Daddy, don't leave us. Don't leave Mommy. Adrian didn't look back. He shut the door, started the engine, and pulled away. His car rolled forward, then accelerated, tires grinding over loose stones. Chloe's sedan followed after a brief pause, merging behind him and disappearing through the cemetery gates. Silence crashed down in their wake. Elena raised her head in time to see the cars vanish around the corner. The last image she had of Adrian was his profile through the windshield, eyes focused straight ahead and hands steady on the wheel as if this was just another commute. Something inside her finally snapped. The man she'd defended, the man she'd excused, the man she'd loved. He was gone. Shock hit first, numb and white hot. Then humiliation, remembering all the relatives watching. Then a deeper pain, the realization that Leo had watched his father choose a stranger over them. Her breathing came in shallow bursts. Aunt Maria knelt beside her. Elena, look at me. Breathe, mi amor. Mr. Hayes approached, concern etched deep into his face. He had stayed quietly on the edge of the chaos, but he could see now that this was more than emotional. Elena, he said firmly but gently, you are pale. We should get you checked by a doctor. She shook her head, clutching her stomach. Not yet. I need to finish saying goodbye. She turned her gaze to the grave, to the flowers, to her mother's photograph smiling up from the frame. I'm so sorry, Mama, she whispered. I thought I chose right. I thought I picked a man who would stay. Tears blurred her vision. Mr. Hayes glanced at Aunt Maria, then crouched to meet Elena's eyes. Elena, he said quietly, I wouldn't bring this up today if it weren't urgent, but your parents left very clear instructions. She blinked, trying to focus. Instructions? She repeated. It's about their will, he said. They insisted we meet as soon as the burial was done. They left something important, for you only. The world around her muted. The murmured condolences, the sound of shovels, the distant hum of traffic. All she could hear was the word will echoing in her mind. And in the middle of her deepest heartbreak, Elena had no idea. The will waiting for her would not only restore her, but place her hands on the strings of everything Adrian depended on. The click of the projector made Elena flinch. The sound was small, but after the burial, everything felt too loud. The modest conference room in Mr. Hayes' law firm was quiet, blinds half closed, the air heavy with the smell of paper and old leather. Intensity filled the air in a different way now, not from shouting or engines or slammed doors, but from the knowledge that whatever came next would change everything. Mr. Hayes, in his late 60s with silver hair and a tired kindness in his eyes, stood beside the small screen with the remote in his hand. This recording, he said gently, was made 2 years ago by your parents. They instructed me to play it for you after both of them had passed, and after your mother's local burial. Elena sat stiffly in the leather chair. Her black dress felt too tight around her 9-month belly. Her feet ached. Her eyes were red and swollen from crying. Aunt Maria held one of her hands. Sophia stood behind her, fingers resting on Elena's shoulder. Leo sat beside her, clutching his stuffed dinosaur, quieter than usual. The room went still. The screen flickered to life, and her parents appeared. Victor and Marisol Vargas, side by side on a couch Elena recognized from their old home, smiled into the camera. Her father in his usual simple button-up shirt, her mother with her hair pulled back, no jewelry except her wedding ring. Hello, mi hija, Marisol said softly. Elena's breath broke. Tears sprang to her eyes. Victor leaned forward slightly. If you are seeing this, Elena, it means your mother and I are no longer with you in this world, he said, voice gentle but steady. We are sorry you must hear our voices this way. Marisol continued, but we did not want lawyers or numbers to be your first contact with our legacy. We wanted you to hear it from us. Victor took a breath. To our only daughter, Elena, you are now the sole heir to Vargas Holdings and all associated companies, jointly valued at approximately $9 billion. The number hung in the air like thunder. Leo blinked, not understanding. Aunt Maria squeezed Elena's hand. Sophia's fingers tightened on her shoulder. Elena sat frozen. She'd known they were wealthy, Tamamay. She'd seen the factories, she'd watched the trucks, but she had never heard the full number spoken out loud. Her parents always lived like comfortable middle-class people, not like billionaires. Victor continued, you will hold controlling shares in all major branches. You have full authority over our corporate interests, including the right to approve, adjust, or cancel any loans tied to Vargas Holdings. Her mother added, we hid this from the public and kept our name out of headlines. We did it for safety and for you. We wanted you to grow up kind, not entitled, to choose love without fear of gold diggers. Elena wiped her cheeks, shoulders trembling. Victor's eyes softened. You may wonder what this means for the people around you, including your husband. There is something you must know. The next words cut deeper than she expected. About 4 years ago, Victor said, you asked if we could help Adrian's career. You said he was hardworking, ambitious, and deserved a chance. We quietly guaranteed a business loan linked to the company he works for. The lender of record is Vargas Holdings, not our personal names. Elena's eyes widened. We did this on two conditions, he went on. One, that Adrian never learn we did it because of you. We did not want his love to change. Two, that if his character ever proved dangerous to you or your children, the final decision over those guarantees would rest with you. Marisol looked straight into the camera. If Adrian has been good to you, fair to you, loyal to you, we hoped you would keep helping him. If he has not, then remember me, hija. Your safety and peace come first. You owe no one access to your heart or your inheritance. Victor finished. Your heart is your greatest strength. Use it with wisdom, and do not let anyone treat you as if you are lucky they stayed. You are the one who is a gift. The video ended, the screen went black. Silence swallowed the room. Elena stared straight ahead, hearing only the echo of Adrian's words at the grave. You'll manage. Your family will take care of you. He had no idea what her family really was. Mr. Hayes stepped forward and placed a stack of documents in front of her. Share transfers, trust instructions, power of signature forms. These make everything your parents just said legally real, he explained. As of today, you are the primary shareholder and final signatory for Vargas Holdings. The existing guarantee on Adrian's business loans now falls under your authority. Elena swallowed hard. So, Tia, if I leave everything alone, his business continues? Yes, Mr. Hayes said. If you withdraw or change the support, the lending bank will reassess his risk. His entire branch could be affected. Aunt Maria's voice was soft but firm. You are not obligated to protect the man who left you at your mother's grave, Hija. Sophia squeezed her shoulder. You finally see the whole board now, Elena. You're not a pawn. You never were. Something shifted inside her. The grief was still there. The humiliation was still raw. But under it, a new feeling appeared. Quiet, steady, dangerous in its calm. She was not powerless. She had never been powerless. She had just never used the power that was hers. Mr. Hayes looked her in the eyes. There is more we can do to protect you and your children, he said. But first, you need the full truth. I've already engaged someone to help us with that. And soon Elena would see what had really been happening behind her back. Every hotel stay, every message, every lie laid out in black and white. The office door opened with a firm, controlled push. Elena startled slightly, still unused to being at the center of meetings. It had been 3 days since the burial and the will video. 3 days of restless sleep, quiet tears, and long talks with Aunt Maria and Sophia about what to do next. Now she sat at a conference table again, this time without funeral clothes, but still in dark, loose maternity wear. Mr. Hayes sat beside her. A woman in her early 30s walked in carrying a thick black folder. This was Maya Torres, a private investigator who had worked on sensitive cases for Mr. Hayes and for Vargas Holdings long before Elena ever needed her. Short hair, steady gaze, posture that said she didn't waste words. The intensity in the room sharpened as she set the folder on the table. We have what you asked for, Maya said, looking first at Mr. Hayes, then at Elena. Enough to build a very clear picture of Adrian's behavior over the last year. Elena's fingers tightened together. You were able to find all of that this fast? Maya nodded. Your father authorized preliminary monitoring months before he died. He had some concerns about Adrian's financial decisions and asked me to keep an eye on anything that might put the company or you at risk. After his death, that report was frozen until Mr. Hayes confirmed your wishes. Mr. Hayes added gently, when you told me about Chloe in the call, I asked Maya to complete the file. So her father had seen the cracks before she did. The realization hurt, but it also made her feel strangely protected. Maya opened the folder and slid several documents toward Elena. These are hotel receipts, she explained. Same 2 hotels, same city, same weekday evenings, 3 months in a row. Room charged to Adrian's company card, but checked in with a guest, a woman named Chloe Bennett. Elena stared at the receipts. There was Adrian's handwriting, his familiar rushed signature, the same dates he claimed he was buried in late meetings. Sophia, sitting on the other side of Elena, covered her mouth. Elena. Maya placed printed screenshots next. These are text messages between Adrian and Chloe, she said, recovered from phone backups and records you authorized through your phone provider as his spouse. Late night messages. I miss you. Last night was amazing. Photos, plans. Elena's stomach churned. The room blurred for a second. Maya's tone softened. This part is hard to see. You don't have to look at every line now. The point is, this wasn't a one-time mistake. This was an ongoing relationship. Then Maya slid one more document forward, dated several months before her parents' accident. This shows he was cheating before your parents died, she said. First hotel stay with Chloe, 8 months ago. Before you were this far along in your pregnancy. Before the plane crash. Before the funerals. The timeline snapped into place. He hadn't turned cold because of stress. He hadn't become distant because he was overwhelmed. He had already left their marriage in his heart. The grief Elena felt shifted. It stopped being confusion and became something clean and sharp. Clarity. Maya cleared her throat. There's also financial misconduct on his side. He charged personal trips to his company card. If the company audits these expenses, it won't go well for him. Mr. Hayes nodded, which is where your position comes in. Because Vargas Holdings guarantees key loans to his branch, you have legal standing to request a full audit as a primary stakeholder and guarantor. Sophia squeezed Elena's arm. You don't have to destroy him, she whispered, but you don't have to shield him anymore either. Elena stared at the pile of proof, hotel receipts, texts, expense logs, evidence of the life he'd been living while she sat at home counting kicks and calling hospitals. How long have I been the last to know? She asked quietly. Maya answered honestly. Months. The words settled like a stone. Mr. Hayes slid a simple form toward her. Just one page this time. This authorizes a full audit of all accounts related to Adrian's department and the loans tied to it, he said. The board will review the results. Depending on what they find, there may be professional consequences for him beyond the divorce. Elena picked up the pen. For a moment, her hand trembled. She thought of Leo crying at the cemetery, of Adrian turning away, of Chloe waiting in that car. The trembling stopped. Protect my children, she said quietly, and protect my parents' name. She signed. Maya closed the folder. Then it begins. And while Adrian still strutted around his office as if nothing had changed, the strings that held his career up were already being pulled from a boardroom he didn't even know his wife now controlled. 3 weeks later, the air in the Vargas Holdings boardroom buzzed with a different kind of tension. The preliminary audit was complete. Elena walked into the room with Mr. Hayes at her side. Her posture was striated now. Her belly felt lighter, because in the days since signing the audit form, she had brought her daughter into the world. The labor had come suddenly, a week after the will reading. It was fast and intense, but safe. Now, though she still wore loose clothing and moved carefully, she had a new strength in her eyes. She wasn't only a grieving daughter and abandoned wife anymore. She was also a mother of 2, and the owner of the table she was walking toward. Inside the room sat 4 people who rose when she entered. Mr. Kwan, the board chair, early 60s, sharp-eyed, steady. Mrs. Patel, the CFO, elegant in her 50s, with a reputation for strict ethics. Daniel Ruiz, known in the company as HR Daniel, calm and observant. Ms. Clark, the company's internal counsel, a woman in her 40s with a firm voice and a tall stack of files. Elena, Mr. Kwan said warmly, thank you for coming and congratulations on your baby. Thank you, Elena replied, giving a small nod. Her hands rested on the table, fingers interlaced, trying to steady the weight of what was about to be discussed. As everyone settled, the intensity of the room shifted into a serious, focused calm. Mrs. Patel opened a folder labeled Internal Audit, Coal Department. Elena, she began, the audit you authorized revealed multiple issues connected to your husband's role as branch manager. Elena's mouth went dry, but she kept her gaze level. Please tell me plainly. Mrs. Patel slid the first set of documents toward her. First, we confirmed repeated misuse of the corporate credit card, she explained. Hotel stays under the label client meetings that matched the receipts investigator Torres gathered. There were no clients present, The receipts are clearly personal. Daniel added, staff saw him with the same woman on several occasions near those hotels. Some of them assumed she was a client. Others suspected otherwise. Mrs. Patel continued, second, we found timesheet irregularities. Hours billed to the company that conflict with his actual presence on site. He was being paid for work he didn't do. Ms. Clark, the lawyer, tapped another document. Third, there are multiple internal complaints from female staff about inappropriate comments and unwanted flirtation. Most were verbal reports to direct supervisors who were either scared to escalate or believed it wouldn't be taken seriously. Daniel nodded. Those women are willing to give full statements now that we've initiated this process. They felt safer knowing the audit came from the top. Each statement landed like a dull thud in the room. Elena didn't flinch outwardly, but inside there was a shifting. He wasn't just a bad husband. He was a liability to everyone around him. Mr. Kwan leaned forward. Because you now own the controlling shares, and because your father previously backed his branch with company guarantees, we needed your permission to move forward on two fronts, internal discipline and loan restructuring. Loan restructuring, Elena repeated. Yes, Mrs. Patel said. Given these findings, Vargas Holdings is no longer comfortable guaranteeing the loans tied directly to Adrian's department. We can withdraw the guarantee. The bank will then decide whether to call the loan, raise rates, or demand new security. Elena thought of her father's words in the video. If his character ever proves dangerous to you, the decision is yours. Ms. Clark spoke clearly. From an HR and legal standpoint, we recommend termination with cause. The evidence supports it. The guarantee withdrawal is a business decision that falls under your discretion. The room fell quiet. The choice lay in front of her. For a moment, Elena saw two images in her mind. Adrian walking away from her at the grave, and the workers who depended on the company making wise decisions. This isn't about revenge, she said finally, her voice soft but solid. It's about integrity. He used company money to fund his affair. He disrespected staff who trusted him, and he left his own family at a burial. She took a slow breath. Follow company policy, she said. If the policy says termination, terminate. If the bank needs to reevaluate the loan because we withdraw our guarantee, let them. Mr. Kwan nodded, respect evident in his eyes. We'll proceed exactly by the book, he said. No more, no less. Ms. Clark gathered the documents. With your consent recorded, we'll finalize the internal decision and complete the written report. It will also form part of the disclosure for your upcoming court hearing. Elena blinked. The court hearing? It's soon? Mr. Hayes answered. Yes, the divorce and custody hearing is scheduled next month. The judge will see not just what he did to you, but who he is in the eyes of his employer. The meeting wrapped up, but as Elena stood, Ms. Clark stopped her gently. Elena, she said quietly, I know this is painful seeing your personal life and his professional life collide, but you should know he did this to himself. You're just refusing to hide it. Elena met her eyes. I understand, she said. For the first time, she felt her lungs fill all the way. She wasn't pulling strings out of spite. She was simply refusing to be the woman who silently absorbed his damage. And while Adrian still bragged to Chloe that the divorce would go his way, he had no idea the judge was about to read his sins aloud, line by line, in front of everyone. The judge's gavel cracked against the wood, and every whispered conversation died instantly. Elena sat at the plaintiff's table, hands folded in her lap. Her breathing was slow and careful. Under the table, her legs shook just enough that she pressed her feet harder into the floor to steady herself. It had been just over a month since the burial. Her daughter had been born 2 weeks after that. Now the baby stayed at home with Aunt Maria and Sophia while Elena faced the next battlefield. Mr. Hayes sat beside her, calm and prepared. Behind them, Maya watched quietly, along with a few family members and company representatives. Across the aisle, Adrian sat at the defense table. He looked different. Gone was the easy arrogance. His shoulders slumped. A faint shadow darkened his jaw, like he hadn't slept well. He kept adjusting his tie, sweating slightly under the courtroom lights. He still had a lawyer, his own, but he looked less like a man in control and more like a man waiting for a sentence he didn't understand. The judge, a woman in her 50s with steady eyes, scanned the documents in front of her. This court will now review the evidence in the matter of Elena Vargas versus Adrian Cole, she said. This involves dissolution of marriage, child custody, and associated financial obligations. She lifted the first paper. Exhibit A, text messages indicating an ongoing extramarital relationship between Mr. Cole and Ms. Chloe Bennett over several months, including during Mrs. Vargas's late-term pregnancy and the period surrounding her parents' deaths. Gasps rippled quietly through the spectators. Adrian shifted in his seat, jaw clenching. Elena stared straight ahead, eyes fixed on the judge's bench. She refused to meet his gaze. Exhibit B, the judge continued, witness statements and photographic evidence confirming that on the day of Mrs. Vargas's mother's burial, Mr. Cole presented divorce papers at the graveside and left the location immediately afterward, despite Mrs. Vargas being at full term in her pregnancy and their minor child present. Adrian winced as the words were spoken in such clinical detail. The judge's voice remained even. Exhibit C, documentation of emotionally cruel statements made by Mr. Cole toward Mrs. Vargas during her pregnancy and immediately after the loss of her parents, as corroborated by text messages and witness testimony from relatives. Jenna, the young co-worker, and others sat watching, some for moral support, some to see justice. The judge raised another document. Exhibit D, internal company audit excerpts provided by Vargas Holdings, confirming misuse of corporate funds by Mr. Cole for personal hotel stays, misrepresentation of business expenses, and patterns of inappropriate behavior toward female staff. Adrian's eyes widened. "They gave you that?" he blurted. "Sit down, Mr. Cole," the judge said firmly. "You will have your turn." He sank back, breathing hard. Mr. Hayes stood. "Your Honor, may we call our first witness?" he asked. "Proceed," she replied. "Ms. Jenna Carter," Mr. Hayes called. Jenna walked carefully to the stand, nervously twisting her fingers. She was in her early 20s, hair pulled back, wearing a simple blouse. She looked like she wanted to be anywhere else. But she sat, raised her hand, and swore to tell the truth. "Ms. Carter," Mr. Hayes said gently, "you worked under Mr. Cole, correct?" She nodded. "Yes, in his branch. Can you tell the court how he treated you and some of the other women in the office?" Jenna swallowed. "He would flirt. A lot. Say things like, 'If you want to move up quickly, it helps to be friendly.' He'd stand too close. Sometimes he'd put a hand on my shoulder and not move it." "Did you feel comfortable reporting this?" Mr. Hayes asked. "At first, no," she said. "He was my manager. He talked about being close to upper management. I was afraid I'd lose my job." Mr. Hayes nodded. "And did you later share any of this with HR as part of the audit?" "Yes," Jenna replied. "When they said it was confidential and that the top shareholders were involved, I finally felt safe enough." "Thank you," Mr. Hayes said. "No further questions." Adrian's lawyer tried to poke holes, asking if anything was misinterpreted, but Jenna's answers were simple and consistent. She wasn't exaggerating. She wasn't out for revenge. She was just tired of being scared. When Jenna stepped down, the judge turned to Adrian. "Mr. Cole," she said, "you have been presented today not just as a husband who failed morally, but as a man whose conduct raises serious concerns about stability, responsibility, and respect for those dependent on him." He shook his head. "She fooled me," he burst out, pointing at Elena. "She never told me who she really was. If I'd known she was Vargas," the judge cut him off. "Your lack of awareness about your wife's inheritance does not excuse your behavior, Mr. Cole. Your actions are your own." Adrian fell silent, stunned by how little that argument helped him. The judge lifted the final ruling document. "Based on the evidence, this court grants primary physical and legal custody of the children to Mrs. Elena Vargas. Mr. Cole will receive limited visitation, supervised until further evaluation. Financial obligations are assigned in alignment with his capacity, subject to revision after his employment status, and the company's internal processes are fully resolved." She paused. "Additionally, the court recognizes the emotional harm caused by serving divorce papers at a burial and considers that act as an aggravating factor in assessing his credibility as a supportive parent." The gavel came down once. Decision made. Adrian stared at Elena, stunned. The life he assumed would bend in his favor had not. Elena finally looked at him. Her eyes held no hatred, just distance. In peace, dear Maon. You fooled yourself, she said quietly. He opened his mouth to argue, but the bailiff was already asking people to clear the room. And as Adrian walked out of the courthouse feeling stripped and exposed, he still clung to one hope, that at least his job remained his. He had no idea the last door he thought was open was already locked. Sir, you can't go inside. The security guard's voice stopped Adrian mid-step, inches from the glass doors of the office building he'd marched through with confidence for years. Intensity hit him like a punch to the stomach. What do you mean I can't go inside? He demanded. I work here. Not anymore, came a calm voice from behind the guard. Adrian looked up to see Daniel Ruiz, HR Daniel, approach, holding a slim folder. Daniel's face was professional, but there was a trace of pity in his eyes. Adrian, Daniel said, thank you for coming. We asked you to be here today to collect your separation documents. Separation? Adrian snapped. I'm the best manager this branch has. You can't just... Daniel opened the folder and spoke steadily. The audit found misuse of company funds, falsified expense reports, and multiple ethics complaints. The board voted. Your employment is terminated with cause, effective immediately. Adrian's mouth went dry. The board? Who on the board would... Daniel met his eyes. The primary shareholder signed off on the decision. Adrian frowned. Who even is the primary shareholder? I've never met... Then the name landed like a hammer. Ms. Elena Vargas, Daniel said. For a second, Adrian forgot how to breathe. Elena? He whispered. You mean my Elena? She's the shareholder? Of Vargas? Behind the front desk, a few employees watched. Some pretended to type, but their eyes kept flicking to the scene at the door. Someone whispered, Isn't that the guy who got exposed in court? Another murmured, He cheated on that Elena. He's finished. Adrian felt the walls closing in. His phone buzzed in his pocket like a last lifeline. He snatched it out. New message. Chloe, I'm sorry, Adrian. I didn't know it would get this messy. I can't be involved in this. Please don't contact me again. Just like that, the woman he'd risked everything for walked away with a few lines of text. He stared at the message, then at the glass doors he could no longer walk through, then at Daniel's steady face. His job, his affair, his reputation, his access to the life he bragged about. Gone. Where am I supposed to go? He muttered, more to himself than to Daniel. Daniel's voice was quiet. That's not for the company to decide anymore, Adrian. These are your final documents. He held out the folder. Security will escort you off the property once you've signed. Adrian took the folder with numb fingers. He signed. The pen felt heavier than it should. As he left the building, the automatic doors opened, then closed behind him with a soft hiss that sounded too much like a goodbye. Hours later, after walking aimlessly through streets that suddenly seemed colder, he found himself standing in front of a familiar door, the small, modest house he used to call home. He hesitated, then knocked. The door opened. Elena stood there, holding a tiny bundle against her chest. Their newborn daughter slept peacefully, her small face relaxed. Leo sat on the floor behind her, building a tower with blocks, humming to himself. Warm light spilled from the living room. The air smelled like baby lotion and home-cooked food. Everything he had thrown away was right in front of him. Elena, he said, voice hoarse. I lost my job. The court, he swallowed. I'm sorry, I didn't know who you were. If I'd known... She looked at him for a long, quiet moment. That's the point, Adrian, she said softly. You didn't know who I was because you never cared to look. Not when I was grieving. Not when I was pregnant. Not when our son cried for you. Her words weren't shouted. They didn't need to be. He glanced past her, at Leo and the baby. Can I at least come in? I have nowhere else. She shifted their daughter gently in her arms and placed her free hand on the door. I don't hate you, she said. I don't wish you harm, but I moved on the day you walked away at my mother's grave. I won't open this door and step back into the same pain. His eyes filled with desperate tears. Elena, please. You still think this is about who I am on paper, she said quietly. Billionaire. Shareholder. Vargas. She shook her head. You never understood that the real treasure was the family you already had. She gave a small, sad smile. That treasure is mine to protect now. And with that, she closed the door. Not slammed, not violently, just a gentle, final close. Adrian stood there, listening to the soft sounds on the other side. Leo's laughter, a baby's small sigh, the faint murmur of a woman who had learned her worth. He realized then that the worst loss wasn't the Brahma, the money, or the public shame. It was standing on the outside of a life he'd been allowed to have, and knowing he'd thrown it away. Inside, Elena walked back to the rocking chair. She sat down, cradling her daughter, while Leo proudly showed her the tower he'd built. Her voice came in a soft, reflective narration, like the close of a story she was finally ready to tell. He left me at a grave, but that day I buried only the version of myself that needed his validation. I rose as the woman my parents raised me to be, a woman who knows her value with or without a man beside her. She smiled at her children. Peace settled around her like a warm blanket. She had her family, she had her legacy, she had herself. For the first time in a long time, she felt whole. I hope you enjoyed watching this story as much as I love creating it for you. Please like, share, and comment the lessons you learned. And let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. See you in my next video.